Listen, I am purely making this video to call myself out, so settle in. Hello friends, I'm Rosa. Welcome. Today I thought it would be kind of fun to go through all the 2021 releases, so that means all the pre-orders that I've managed to get myself, however, have not read. There's a surprising amount, okay? There's like 30 plus books here. I'm slightly embarrassed. So that's what we're gonna do, and there's gonna be a mix of everything. I'm just gonna tell you the plot of the book, if I know it, and then move on to the next one so this video doesn't turn out to be like 40 minutes long, which to be fair, it probably will be anyway. But let's get started. Firstly, we got Vespertine, which came out in September. It's by Margaret Rogerson. It's a young adult fantasy with paranormal stuff and I suppose magic. Perfect October read, I would say, if I'd read it, but I haven't. But essentially, Vespertine is about our lead girl who is training to be a Grey Sister at a convent that is attacked, and to defend her convent, she summons a dangerous spirit, a revenant. However, she is not equipped to control this spirit. Only Vespertines are. So that is that. I don't know anything else because I've not read it. I know. I'm gonna be saying that a lot throughout this video, so let's get used to it now. Next up, we have one that I'm gonna have a hard time trying to summarize, but it's A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. This is also young adult. It is urban fantasy. It has fae or fairies. The cover looks like yes. And the sequel is also coming out this year, I think over the summer. And as bonus info, this also takes place in Toronto in Canada, which is pretty cool. I don't see a lot of books taking place in Canada, so I believe, as far as I remember, this book is about, there's a string of murders in Toronto that are kind of threatening the fae because they're still secret. Like, they are keeping their existence a secret still. And they don't want the humans to know. But these murders are kind of threatening that a little bit. So this group of younger fae take out to kind of solve what's going on. And I think there's some backstabbing going on as well, but I don't really know. Super excited to get into it at some point though. Just haven't gotten to it yet, so gotta get to it before all those sequels come out though. We have a lot of work to do. A lot of work. Then we have She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which is an adult fantasy kind of inspired by historical fiction. That doesn't make any sense. Kind of historical fiction-y, or is it Chinese mythology? It's one of the two. It's inspired by something. And this is also very heavily inspired, I think, by Mulan. At least the story resembles Mulan somehow. In this, we follow Shu, or as she'll be known, at least. When she was younger, her and her brother had their futures read by a seer who came to visit the town. And this seer told them that the brother would have this great future. He would bring honor to the family. He would get greatness and glory. While Shu herself, not known as Shu at the time, but still, were told that she'd basically just be nothing. Or maybe she was told that she'd be dead. Nothingness. That's what she was told. But then one day, while they're under Mongol rule, and the soldiers are visiting the village that the Changbas live in, so Shu's family, her brother actually is killed, and so the sister decides to take on his identity and flees to a monastery to be safe. And from there on, Shu kind of learns a lot about herself and is probably thrown into war and stuff, and I'm so excited to read this. Like, so excited, and I just haven't gotten to it. We need more than 24 hours a day, I swear. How am I gonna get to all these books when I don't have enough hours in the day? You know? Next up, we have another adult fantasy. This is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. And this is also inspired by Greek mythology. And I'm unsure what this book really is about, other than we follow Ariadne. She falls in love with a prince who has to kill a minotaur that is living underneath this place that Ariadne lives in. But she also knows that she's not actually allowed to help him. And there's a lot going on. I feel like we're getting some feminist vibes from this because there's some, like, women are not allowed to do this thing, but Ariadne still wants to do it, so that kind of situation. And the cover is so pretty. Also, there's another one coming out this year that is called Electra. It's not a series, it's not a companion novel series, but Electra is also Greek mythology inspired, and the two covers look so good next to each other. So I'm gonna have to read this before Electra is released so that I know if I should get my hands on it or not, but we will see. And then we have a young adult fantasy as well that is called All of Us Villains, and this is by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. This is about magicians and magician families, I think, that have to duel, and it's kind of like Hunger Games, but with evil magicians instead. Something about a tell-all book or article that's been released before this duel takes place. Sounds like a lot of drama, intrigue, and I want to read about villains as well, but like well-written villains. I think that sounds so cool. So I'm super excited to get into this as well at some point. Probably maybe in fall time, I feel. This feels like it would be better during fall time. And I believe it's also first in a series, either a duology, maybe a trilogy, don't really know. But the cover is also gorgeous. That's all for All of Us Villains. See, we're breezing through this. I'm really trying my best here. Next up we have Gilded by Marissa Mayer. This is young adult fantasy romance and it's a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. So this book is about our lead girl who has grown a talent for telling stories. Very outlandish stories. Unfortunately for her, somehow one of these stories are kind of picked up on by the sinister Earl King and his undead hunters. And she is drawn into a lot of mess. And I'm super excited to read this. Marissa Mayer to me is basically like the retelling queen. So we're gonna have a good time with this. I know that this has been picked as my book club's February book of the month. So we'll be reading this in February. I'll be doing a spoilery vlog on it and I can't wait. So this is actually gonna be read. Awesome, amazing. I believe it's also the first one in a either trilogy or a duology, not really sure, but the second one is coming out this year and I believe it's called Cursed. So we got that to look forward to as well. And if you want to check out the book club, I'll make sure to leave a link to it in the pinned comment down below. So maybe, you know, if you want to join us in reading Gilded, you can find the link there. Then we have another retelling. This is a young adult fantasy. I believe there's some romance in there and it's a retelling of the Goose Girl. So we have a little bit of a villain story here as well. But in this book, we follow our lead girl again, and she's not a nice girl. She is a servant for the princess who has an amazing life and is super nice and pleasant and everything that our lead girl basically isn't. Our lead girl is also a thief. She makes her living off of stealing jewels, and then one day she decides to steal the prince's identity, and for this she gets in trouble. Rightfully so, I would say. So I'm really looking forward to reading this at some point because again, it's a villain story and I'm here for it. This is also the Illumicrate Special Edition, by the way, so it has stenciled edges, or is it 2 colors stenciled edges? I'm not really sure what they call them. And then, you know, it's just red. The front cover is a bit different, and the naked cover also has some art on it that is actually drawn by the author Margaret Owen. So this is one of the prettiest books that I own, and I'm gonna have a very hard time reading it, which is probably the reason I haven't done it yet, but we'll get to it. And then we have a book that I'm actually currently reading, but I haven't read it yet, so I'm still gonna talk about it. It is Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. The bookmark is going. And this is a young adult fantasy, romance, and a retelling of Robin Hood, which is so cool. Robin Hood? Yes. In this book, we follow another lead girl. We love lead girls. Yes. She lives in a kingdom where there's kind of like a plague taking rounds, if you will, or at least people are getting sick. And the only thing that can cure people is a flower that is only obtainable in 2 different areas of this world, of this kingdom. But there's a lot of corruption going on. The richer people are kind of hoarding this cure to themselves. So the poor are unfortunately dying. Our lead girl is on a mission to help them, so she's both stealing this flower to help them, the cure, but she also decides that she kind of has to infiltrate the council as well to fix this corruption from the inside. Something like that. Super excited to get further into this story. I'm only 2 chapters in so far, and I've already been surprised. So that's a good thing, you know, that's a good thing. But I'll keep you guys updated on this in this monthly wrap-up. That'll be up sometime next month, and I'm just excited. And then we have another book by Bridget Kemmerer, and this is the 3rd one in a trilogy. It's A Vow So Bold and Deadly? Yes, A Vow So Bold and Deadly. It's the 3rd one in the Curse Breakers trilogy, so the first one being A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which is young adult fantasy, romance, and a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. We follow a girl who is taken off into this kind of like magical realm, I suppose, where the prince is turning into a beast now and then. He's killing people, but he doesn't want to kill people, and she's there to help him break this curse. I have heard kind of mixed things about the 3rd one, so I haven't gotten into the trilogy yet, but I really want to read it. I'm just a little bit nervous about getting to this one. we'll see how it goes. But if I like Defy the Night, it'll definitely be high on my to-read list because, you know, Bridget Kemmerer. So we'll see though. And then there is another sequel. It's The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. This is the second book in the Prison Healer trilogy. The third one is coming out sometime in summer. And I've talked about this book a couple of times. I'm planning on reading this month, so super excited for that. Just haven't read it yet. But The Prison Healer is about our lead girl who works as a healer at a prison that she's also a prisoner at. Then one day they get a newcomer, a new prisoner, the Rebel Queen. And the royals are really set on not necessarily executing the Rebel Queen, but they want justice for her actions. So they decide that she has to go through the elemental trials. Unfortunately, the Rebel Queen is unconscious and unable to do so. But the only way that she can get freedom is to go through the trials. So our lead girl, instead, knowing that if she goes through the trials for the Rebel Queen, she also gets freedom. She takes on the trials herself. No one's ever gone through these trials before and actually managed to survive. But our lead girl just really needs to get out of this prison because her family's on the outside, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. The first book was a lot of fun to read, so I'm really looking forward to going into this one. Also because the cliffhanger is so mean. So just be aware of that if you go into it. It's really, really mean, and I'm very nervous to see if the ending of this one will be something like it. Because it was, like, when I say mean, I mean it. It was evil. It was a very, very evil cliffhanger, okay? But anyway, The Gilded Cage. And then we have another sequel. We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faisal. And I don't actually remember what the first one is about. I bought them back in June. I've completely forgotten it. But both of them. And I've completely forgotten it. All I know is that these two books are supposedly so amazing. The second one better than the first one. And they're also a different vibe from a lot of the other fantasy books that I have. This is also young adult fantasy, by the way. Romance. I think there's some enemies to lovers in there. It is the sequel to We Hunt the Flame, but unsure of what they're about. And I don't want to read the synopsis in this one because I don't want to accidentally spoil anything for myself. So I'm gonna leave it here, but I think the reason that I've kept postponing reading these is because I really want to do a reading vlog while I read them. So we'll see, maybe around spring this year or something. Or is it more of a summer read? If you've read them, let me know. And that was the first stack out of 3. We're making progress. Look at us, doing great. So the next one that we have is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, and this is young adult fantasy magic. We have our lead girl who lives in a world, kingdom, whatever we call this area that she lives in. Not really sure. But I believe it's just the girls that have to go through this, but I'm not sure completely. But let's just say that it's just the girls. When they turn a certain age, they have to go through a blood ceremony to see if their blood runs red or gold. If it runs red, they're free to go, and if it runs gold, they're kind of taken off to somewhere else where supposedly they're supposed to, you know. And our lead girl's blood actually ends up running gold. So she's taken off to this place with all these other girls, and as it turns out, the other girls whose blood also runs gold are still here. They're kind of forming an army of these girls so they can hunt down the Empire's greatest threats. Sounds super cool. There's also a sequel coming out this year. I think very soon. It's called The Merciless Ones or something like that. Very excited to read this as well. I also bought this like ages ago, months ago, over half a year ago. It's so embarrassing. It's fine, but I'm super excited to get started on it at some point. We'll probably wait until the sequel is out though, just so I can read them back to back. But the whole premise of it sounds so interesting, so very excited to go into this one at some point. And we have another one that literally came out like a month ago or something like that, and it is Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the sequel to These Violent Delights that I have not read but I do own, and it was kind of awkward only having to hold this up because I've not even featured these in a haul yet. I will later next month. But the first book is about a boy and a girl who live in 1920 Shanghai. It is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, so these two people are from rivaling families. And I believe there's something about like a virus going crazy where they live as well or something. Or maybe I was just told that that was a thing because that sounds very Resident Evil-like. And I'm not really sure. So we'll see, but all I've heard is that these books are amazing and I'm looking forward to going into them. Just like with all my other books, like why else would I have them? I just haven't found the time yet, so we'll see about that. It'll happen at some point very soon. Next up, we have a sci-fi young adult. This is Saitonic by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the third book in the Skyward trilogy. That's not a trilogy. Series? I don't know how many books it is, but it's not a trilogy. There's a fourth one coming out next year, 2023, which I believe is going to be called Defiant. But in this book, we follow our lead girl, Spencer, whose dad was a pilot before he was killed. Unfortunately, this has kind of dishonored her family. Something that her dad did dishonored her family, but Spencer has always dreamed of being a pilot. However, they won't take her in and train her because of her dad. But then one day, because there's like skybreak, that aliens or other aliens are coming through. I don't know. Explain that. Evil aliens are coming through. Desperate measures have to be taken, and Spencer sees this as an opportunity to kind of help as well. Something like that. I've heard so many good things about this, and this will also be my first Brandon Sanderson series that I go into, because I'm pretty sure that going into this one, which is young adult, is probably better before I go into like Mistborn or something, right? I'm looking because I got them for Christmas, so... So I'm counting on going into these ones, even though they're sci-fi, not fantasy, before I start anything else Brandon Sanderson, because I think it's a better way to kind of get started with his writing. So yeah. Then we have another sci-fi. This is The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrafer. In this book, we follow Ambrose and what was his name? Kodiak. And they are kind of stuck on a ship in space. Actually, I'm gonna read the start of this little because it sums it up perfectly. After the first settler on Titan trips her distress signal, neither remaining country on Earth can afford to scramble a rescue of its own, and so two sworn enemies are installed in the same spaceship. Also, the settler on Titan happens to be Ambrose's sister, and there's a lot of secrets on the ship as well, a lot of stuff going down. And one thing that I find so cool is that this is actually not split up into proper chapters, but it'll say like tasks remaining every new chapter, and then there's fewer and fewer tasks. And I find that so fascinating. So heard a lot of good things about this. Super excited. And we'll see when I read it. I don't know when it's gonna happen. I'm just excited. Then we have a young adult fantasy. I believe there's some romance in there, and I think this is also inspired by Chinese mythology, something like that. And it is Jade Fire Gold by June C.L. Tan. And in this book, we follow our lead girl and our lead guy. Our lead girl is basically no one, but somehow she has magical powers that are actually forbidden to have in this empire that she lives in. And unfortunately, at some point, this is not a spoiler, it's in the synopsis, I swear. Unfortunately for her, she's also exposed, so she's taken off to the Imperial Palace to await her fate. And then we also have the lead guy, who is known throughout this whole empire because I believe he's a prince or something like that. He's been on the run because his family has been killed and he's basically lost everything. He also has magic. There's something exciting there going on. It looks like they also have weapons. I'm super excited for that. I kind of want to see them fight as well. Is that bad of me to say? I want to see them fight and then become friends or something. So, but yeah, haven't read this yet. Super excited to read it as per usual with all these other books. This is going great. Anyway, moving on. We have another book. This one I got for Christmas. It's Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. This is fantasy, romance, paranormal stuff as well. Our lead guy basically dies, but he hasn't really realized that he's died until a reaper comes by to reap him. And he somehow talks his reaper into giving him a few more days to get his affairs in order. And then he goes to have tea with some dude that I suspect might be Death, but I'm not really sure. I don't know what's going on. I'm super intrigued. I want to read this ASAP because what's going on? I don't know. But heard lots of good things about this, and also The House in the Cerulean Sea, so yes, excited. And we have the third in a trilogy, which is Auroras End. This is the third book in the Aurora cycle by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. The Aurora cycle is about a squad of misfits. We have our lead girl, Aurora, who has been asleep for a very long time, but she was then discovered or something. She's dragged into this academy, or not an academy, but like for squad training. I don't know what's going on. It sounds very confusing. It's sci-fi. It's always confusing. But I've heard lots of good things about this trilogy, so I bought all 3 books before going into them, which is a little bit risky, and now I've not read them. Shame on me. But we'll get to it. I have another one that I'm not gonna bother trying to explain because I'm reading it this month, and in my TBR video, I also did not know how to summarize it, but it's the third one in the From Blood and Ash trilogy. This one is called The Crown of Gilded Bones. It came out 2021. I have not read any of the 3 books, but like I said, I'm planning on reading them this month. These are also by Jennifer L. Armentrout. They are, I believe, actually adult fantasy romance. Quite steamy. I believe there's a vampire in there. Maybe there's a shifter or something. Some about daggers and a lot of steam. That's all I got. So we will see. Oh, and I almost read the back of it. So that would have spoiled something. I don't want to know. I'm moving on. Next up, we have Dreams Lie Beneath by Rebecca Ross. For some reason, I just desperately want to call this Dreams Lie Beneath Us. I don't know what it is. I keep doing it. It's terrible. This is the Owl Crate exclusive edition, by the way, which is why it does not look like the normal cover at all. It also has some foiling on the hardback or on the naked cover, and some pretty cool dust jacket art as well, which is... I love these vibes. Okay, I love them. This book is also about dueling magicians. However, I don't think they're villains this time. So it takes place in a London-looking kind of world, if not directly in London, actually. I don't know, it doesn't say, but I think Harriswith, because Clementine, our lead girl, is supposed to be a warden of Harriswith. I don't know. She can get to like study wilder magic by being a warden, so that's what she's kind of working towards. And then I think a father and his son, another set of magicians, come in and kind of want this spot from under her. So they have to duel. There's a bit of an enemies to lovers situation going on, and I'm super excited for it. I read The Night Circus, so I'm like, and I loved it. So anything dueling magicians, I'm like, give it to me. Okay, give it to me. So yes, we're gonna love this one. I have a good feeling about it. Also, this cover is super cute. I'm sure that once I've read it, I'll know what some of these things on the cover mean. Like, I don't really know what this helmet is about at all, for example. There's a lot of potions around as well. There's a snake, 2 snakes, a mirror too. I don't know, but I'm intrigued. And then we have one that I'm embarrassed that I haven't read yet, like with most of these books. But 24 hours, okay, 24 hours. It is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. They just announced the title of the second one. Is it called The Ballad of the Never-Ending Tale? No, that can't be right. Oh, The Ballad of Never After. Yeah, that sounds a lot better. Anyway, but if you have read Caraval, the second and the third book in the Caraval trilogy, you've come across one of the characters that is in this book. That character is basically my favorite character in this universe, so why have I not read this yet? I don't know. But anyway, this is young adult fantasy, romance, magic. We follow Evangeline, who is desperately in love with a guy that she can't have because he is marrying someone else. So Evangeline makes a deal with the Fate Jax, Prince of Hearts, so that she can get her hands on this man. But making a deal with the Prince of Hearts is risky business and doesn't always turn out the way that you want it to. So that's all I know. That's all I need to know. I'm excited for this. Because Jax is just such a good character, and I can't wait to laugh over his just grayness, basically. Like, you don't know where you got him at all, ever, so I'm very excited for that. It is gonna be an amazing time. I'm gonna laugh, and I need the vibes. I need the Jax vibes, you know? I need the Jax vibes. Yes, I accidentally called him Next. I don't know what that was. Let's just ignore it. Move on to A Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk. This is adult fantasy historical fiction and also magic, I believe. It is also the first one in a series, or at least a duology, that is called The Last Binding. And if you're wondering why this book looks like this, it's because it's the Illumicrate special edition, so stenciled edges. There's a funky thing going on with the cover here, like it's transparent, and then when you take it off, it looks like this. It's actually gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful book, although quite noisy on cam, but anyway. In this book, I believe we follow 2 guys. I don't know what gave it away. The 2 guys on the cover? No idea. Just call it a notion. Anyway, in this book, we follow a young guy who is a baronet, whatever that is. I don't know, I haven't looked it up. And he is in a bit of a... he's going through a hard time. Things are not going well for him. And then by mistake, he is appointed as a liaison for a secret society, which is how he discovers that magic is apparently a thing in the world that he lives in. Like, who would have thought? And it sounds like kind of Harry Potter-ish, doesn't it? Like, adult Harry Potter? I don't know. And unfortunately for him, just to make things worse, he also attracts a curse. So he has to get help from this other guy. I don't know which one of them it is, but one of these guys is one and one is the other. that didn't make it. Moving on. To help him lift this curse. And the two of them are not really the most likely allies. They're not the biggest fans of each other either. So it sounds like an enemies to lovers, and I'm here for it. Always here for an enemies to lovers. Plus with a little bit of historical fiction, that is super cool. Secret world with magic, like our world, but there's magic in it. I'm here for it. I love that. And then we have a book that I want to read this month, which is Iron Widow by Shiran J. Xiao. This is young adult fantasy romance. There's a polyamorous relationship in this book, and is it a little bit sci-fi as well? I think one could argue that there's some sci-fi aspects to this. So in this book we follow our lead girl who is set on avenging her sister's death. Because in this world that this book takes place in, there's kind of like a program going on where they have these flying mechanical birds, if you will. The phoenixes, I believe they are mechanical birds. I'm just gonna call them that. And these are piloted by a girl and a guy. The girl, however, is always kind of expected to die. It's very rare that they survive this flight. And our lead girl's sister was unfortunately a victim to this program, and she ended up dying. So our girl is basically set on avenging her sister's death, but our lead girl actually ends up surviving her first flight, and her perspective changes a bit. So now she doesn't just want revenge for her sister, she wants to take this whole program down. And it sounds like badassery, which I'm here for, and I've heard so insanely many good things about this book, and I want to read it this month. It's happening. It's gonna happen. I almost knocked down all my books just now. Wow. Then we have a couple more fantasy books, but we also have some contemporary that I've not read yet. We're almost done. Almost done. But we have Not Here to Be Liked by Michelle Quag, or Michelle, I should say. It's not called Michelle. Michelle Quag. I like how it says on the back, warning, this book contains an unlikable female character. I'll probably love her, like I'm not gonna lie. But this supposedly, allegedly unlikable female character is Eliza. She's getting top grades in school, she's doing great, and she's also not afraid to tell her mind, which makes her basically the perfect candidate for the editor-in-chief of the school's paper. However, for some reason, there's this popular ex-jock on the school that also wants the same position, so the two of them start this little competition between each other, and it basically ends up riling up the whole school so that there's a lot of drama going on, and eventually the two of them will have to work together to calm everyone down. I don't know. Sounds like a fun time. I'm just looking forward to getting to know Eliza, to be honest. And look how smug he looks. Like, he looks so smug. I love this cover, by the way. It's gorgeous. Love this art. I just really like it. So, also a debut, by the way, which is pretty cool. We have Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World. This is by Benjamin Alida Science. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. I'm terribly sorry. And these books are essentially about two boys that are vastly different that are getting to know each other. That's basically what they are. Young adult contemporary romance as well. They're also about them getting to know themselves too. So like, which is that a coming of age story? Like self-discovery or something like that? But the sequel here came out a long time after the first one, so I don't actually know if they've gotten older. I don't want to know. I've just heard so insanely many good things about the first one, so when I saw that there was a box set announced, I decided to get my hands on it, and I haven't read them yet. But this is also like a very recent release as well, so I'm not gonna judge myself too hard for not having read this one. But it's a sequel. Just to point out, it's a sequel. We also have one that I bought back in like August, which is For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten. I believe there are some Little Red Riding Hood retelling aspects to this book, but I could be wrong. I don't know, it's just something about the wolf and the red coat and the hood. It's just kind of giving me those vibes. But again, I could be wrong. It might just be like slightly inspired by the Little Red Riding Hood. But anyway, we follow our lead girl who is from, or she lives in a kingdom that I don't think it's doing too good. I think there's like a looming threat going on. And she's also the second daughter that has been born for centuries, which means that she is to be sacrificed to the wolf of the woods. She possesses dangerous magic as well that she can't control. And when she arrives at the woods, she learns that the wolf is actually not a wolf, it's not a monster, it's a man, and he's gonna teach her how to control her powers so that she can help save the kingdom. I believe it's something like that, and I haven't gotten into it yet, which shame on me. But I believe there's a second one coming out this year as well, so it's one of those I gotta get into before the sequel is coming out, I'm pretty sure. Also, that is most definitely an adult fantasy, and there's quite a lot of trigger warnings for it, as far as I've heard, so just, you know, something to check up on if you're interested in going into the book. And then we have, I actually don't know what the first one is about, but it's a sequel. It is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book of the Last Hours trilogy. I think the third one is called Chain of Thorns, and it's coming out this year. The first one is A Chain of Gold, and it's standing literally right there. And I've not read them. But I also don't know what they're about, and I don't really want to know. I don't want to know before going into them. I want to read The Dark Artifices before going into these, so I haven't really looked into the story or anything. I just know that some of the characters have something to do with some of the characters from The Infernal Devices, which that trilogy was like top tier to me. So I know I'm gonna have a good time with these ones. My computer just turned on. That scared me, okay. But I know that I'm gonna have a good time with these because Shadowhunters and Cassandra Clare and feelings and action and just a whole lot of stuff packed into these books, and it's gonna be a good time. Yes. Next up, there's King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. I believe this is also the first book in a trilogy. In a trilogy. This is adult fantasy, romance, enemies to lovers. I believe there's some vampires as well. So paranormal vibes too. But essentially, we follow Isolde, who has to marry the vampire king, Adrian, and then kill him. Unfortunately for her, this assassination attempt doesn't go that well, so she's taken off to where Adrian hangs out and lives and stuff, and I believe she's not getting the best of treatment either, but as she gets to learn Adrian a little bit better, the two of them start to go closer, and there's something about attraction as well, and this will probably be my first Scarlett St. Clair book, and I'm looking forward to it. I think this is gonna be steamy as well. I've not read A Touch of Darkness, but from the things I've heard, as far as I've gathered, it's quite steamy, so I got that to look forward to. Just haven't gotten into it yet. Next up, another Lumicrate edition. This is The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This is the third book in her companion novel series that I actually don't know the name of, but it's The Kiss Quotient, The Bright Test, and then this one came out in 2021. In this one, we follow our lead girl right here. Her name is Anna. I just had to check. But she's a violinist, and she had a YouTube video, seemingly a YouTube video. Yes, go viral, and she's been kind of chasing that success ever since that happened. But it's also finding it very hard to keep up with it, and she's also feeling overwhelmed. And just to make it worse, her boyfriend through 5 years decides that he wants an open relationship, which Anna is not really here for, so she's angry and hurt and decides to basically bite back by having a lot of one-night stands. And the worse, the better. And this is where Quan, if you've read The Kiss Quotient, he's in that book. He's the one that Michael talks to a lot. So Anna comes across Quan, and their first one-night stand does not go that well. Neither does their second or their third. But there's something about feelings and stuff. And then unfortunately something happens in Anna's family. There's a tragedy, and I don't know what it's about, but this is basically another challenge for her and also Quan. And I loved The Kiss Quotient, so I haven't read this one yet because I want The Bright Test before I jump into this one. So that's basically the reason why, but I'm super excited for it because The Kiss Quotient was so good. So yeah. Also this, like I said, is the Lumicrate special edition, which is why it has yellow sprayed edges, just for those of you who are curious. We got 3 more books, and then we're done. 3 more. Hang in there, guys. Just hang in there a little bit more. The next one that I want to talk about is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, or the next one that I haven't read, that I bought and haven't read, just to call myself out. This book follows our lead girl, lead woman, lead lady. I believe she's a single mom, so she's both climbing the steps of her career while also raising her daughter by herself, and she's finding it hard to find time to go on dates because of that. So there is this, wait, what's it called? Genetic Ally. That sounds so weird. But it's not like a dating app. It's more like send in your DNA and then we'll match you up with someone, and that's Soulmate Equation. So we'll find you your perfect match if you send in your DNA. So she sends in her DNA, and to her surprise, her result is that her closest match, her closest soulmate match, is the founder of this company. She knows this guy, and she knows for sure that he is not her soulmate. So that's what this book is about, and that sounds like such a perfect premise that I am just, yes. I forgot I had you in my collection, and I'm terribly sorry, and now I really desperately want to read it all of a sudden. I don't know, I just forgot I had it. It's on the lowest shelf on my bookcases. How am I supposed to just overlook it all the time? Anyway, next up we have All the Feels. This is a sequel to Spoiler Alert, and they are companion novels, by the way, so you don't have to read Spoiler Alert to get to All the Feels, but it's a 2021 release and I have not read it, so here we are. As far as I know, this is about a TV star who stars in one of the biggest TV shows, but his character has kind of been run into the ground by the showrunners, and he's not doing too good himself, so he hires a therapist, or she's an ER therapist, to kind of bring him up again. But our dear girl, our lead girl, is finding it hard to not be attracted to this very handsome TV star. And there's a scandal that happens that basically costs her her job. Alex, our lead guy, doesn't want to let her go, so they go on a road trip together. I'm sure that there's only one bed trope situation in this book, but I don't really know. It's road trip feels. Yes, okay. Also, by the way, this is another Illumicrate book. Just so you know, that's why the sprayed edges. These don't come as hardbacks either, but they turn them into hardbacks for their special edition, so that is super cool. I am going to be reading Spoiler Alert next month, so I will get into All the Feels after that, and I'll let you guys know what I think about it. I just haven't read it. And now we have the last one, so I can stop calling myself out. However, this is a pretty big call out as well, because why have I not read this book? As someone who actually likes adult contemporary romances, just to be more specific, why in the world have I not read this book? The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. I'm reading this next month, I swear, I promise, it's happening. But this book is... I'm not actually sure what it's about. Other than we have a grumpy sunshine situation, and she's the grumpy one and he's the sunshine. She is not interested in love as far as I know, but her best friend seems to be a very romantic kind of gal. And so to kind of convince her that she is happy on her way to everlasting love, she decides to kiss the first man that she sees. And that happens to be this young, handsome professor. I believe she's a student. I don't know how that works, but I'm intrigued. And so they enter this deal that has something to do with fake dating, and I love fake dating in books. I love fake dating in books. Mixed with grumpy sunshine, and everyone just kind of loving this. This is gonna be a good time, like I already know it. When it comes to adult contemporary romances, I am definitely as mainstream as they come, so I know that I'll love this. I'll read it next month, I promise. And that was the last one. I can finally stop calling myself out for buying a lot of books, pre-ordering a lot of books, and then just not reading them. We'll do another one at the start of the next year on all the 2022 releases that I haven't read. It's a promise. But anyway, that's all. I think that was 32 books, so if you've read any of them and you loved them or didn't like them at all, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear you guys out on that. If you want to check out the book club, like I said, there's a link to it in the pinned comment as well. But that is all. I have been talking for so long. I need something to drink, and I need to just calm down and put all these books back in their spots. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And also if you want to hang out with me and nerd out about books in the comments, both with me and everyone in the comments as well. That was so messy. Just if you want to nerd out about books, hit the subscribe button. And that is all. So I'm gonna go, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!